For over 2 years, the bog of eternal stench that is Activision Blizzard has dominated gaming news sites, podcasts, and made mainstream headways to the point that even my mother has asked me about it. Granted, not without once mentioning that real adults don't play video games, but she's aware, and that's the point. Now that the looming shadow of the Microsoft acquisition may finally dissipate this week, I thought it would be a good idea to reminisce about the good times, look back at the history, and wonder, how on earth does Bobby Kotick still have a job? Here is the story so far. Long before we get to the deal, it's important to look at the events preceding it. In the summer of 2021, thank you, Psyche Blue. Summer of 2021, California's Department of Fair Employment and Housing, whose acronym sounds like Batman punching Gorilla Grodd, filed a lawsuit claiming that the top executives of Blizzard Entertainment and its owner, Activision Blizzard, were either aware of or involved in sexual harassment and gender-based discrimination. This was surrounded by numerous women who came forward and told their stories of how executives in the company treated women the way DeviantArt treats Overwatch characters. Poorly, over-sexualized, and nothing I can share on this show. This includes Blizzard's president, former CTO, senior creative directors, and many more. But all the paperwork led to one man at the top knowing about, ignoring, and perpetuating the harassment. Activision Blizzard CTO and Zelda Wand of Gamelon character, Bobby Kotick. Now, Bobby would spend the next couple of months apologizing for some allegations, including threatening to have his assistant killed, but largely denying the bulk of them, and blaming union organizers for trying to destabilize the company. None of this is surprising. I mean, look at him. Of course he's a prick to people. He looks like the kind of guy who masturbates to pictures of Ari Gold as part of his morning routine. Now, deny he may have done, but stock prices crashed and the company agreed to settle with both the Securities and Exchange Commission as well as the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission for a combined $53 million. Now, why do I bring this up? Well, it establishes two factors. One, Bobby Kotick has a special place in hell waiting for him. And if anyone was going to swoop in to buy this company, best to do it during its downfall. On January 18th, 2022, Xbox announced that their intent to buy Activision Blizzard at a whopping $68.7 billion, making it the biggest deal in gaming's history. Keep in mind, before this, Take-Two had bought your parents' favorite Facebook developer, Zynga, at about $12.7 billion. Now, to call this a shocker was an understatement. This would give Phil Spencer control over Warcraft, Call of Duty, Diablo, and Blackthorn, which is a much better game than people give it credit for. Now, Phil was already claiming that they would continue to sell some games on PlayStation, but that plenty of the games would become first-party exclusives. This deal would make Microsoft the third largest gaming business behind Tencent and Sony, which, by the way, are they not already? You're a console maker. Get your shit together, Microsoft. Of course, the big elephant in the boardroom was Bobby Kotick. He was telling people that he was all for this acquisition, but the truth is he lost all bargaining power to keep control the moment Kappa Beta Small Dick took over his HR department. Now, would he keep his job given the allegations? Microsoft initially said yes, but it was later revealed that he would only stay until the transition was done. I mean, the man is like herpes. Hard to look at, and even if it looks like you got rid of it, it's still there. Now, April 1st, 2022, several months after the announcement, U.S. Senators Elizabeth Warren, Cory Booker, Sheldon Whitehouse, and the official politician of white male hacky sack players everywhere, Bernie Sanders, sent a letter to the Federal Trade Commission outlining the concerns about the deal, especially as it relates to Activision Blizzard employees, given all the allegations against the company. In retaliation, Phil and Bobby sent a letter back saying, "Lol, good April Fools, guys, that's hilarious." September 1st, a war of words begins. Phil Spencer confirms that PlayStation gamers will in fact still get Call of Duty on the same launch day as Microsoft. Then PlayStation CEO Jim Ryan responds with a statement claiming that after almost 20 years of Call of Duty on PlayStation, their proposal was inadequate on many levels and failed to take account the impact on our bottom line. I mean gamers. Sorry. At this time, UK's Competition and Markets Authority, or CMA, as I don't want to say that every time, also began expressing concerns. Microsoft attempted to fight these back, claiming Sony was too big to fail, and that Xbox will ship Call of Duty to Sony's consoles as long as there is a PlayStation to ship to. Wow. Oh, that sounds like a mafia threat. Great gaming system you got here. Same if something bad happened to it. Now, Phil Spencer did make good on his promise by offering Sony a 10-year deal to keep the Call of Duty on PlayStation, 7 years more than the current 3-year deal they had in place. Now, remember those 4 politicians? Well, their letter to the FTC paid off, as on December 8th, the Federal Trade Commission released a statement claiming that the deal could harm competition in the gaming space by denying rivals access to popular content. Excuse me, they also cited Microsoft's previous acquisition of ZeniMax Media, which has kept games like Starfield and Redfall off of rival consoles, though that last argument might not do them any favors. In the beginning of 2023, we saw more pushback from the CMA with concerns about the price increases in games, fewer choices in the industry, and less innovation for gamers. Now, one particular area was cloud gaming. Microsoft accounts for about 60 to 70% of the cloud gaming market, the only thing Xbox has really been beating Sony and Nintendo on, and that making Call of Duty exclusively available on their service could make them unstoppable. Now, we do recognize that Call of Duty isn't the only game on the line here, right? Is no one concerned about Lost Vikings? Now, given the pushback, Microsoft was ready to counter. They made a 10-year deal to bring all of its PC games to NVIDIA GeForce, the other big cloud-based system, as well as a 10-year deal to bring Call of Duty to Nintendo as well, similar to what they gave Sony. Now, this promise was to provide the same features and full content parity to the Nintendo Switch as seen on Xbox hardware. Good luck with that. This led NVIDIA to walk away from the opposing side, as well as the CMA pulling a Shawn Michaels on Sony, saying that they no longer believe the deal would harm the competition in the way they once did in the console market. However, they were still happy and blocking the deal as it relates to cloud gaming in the UK. Other regulatory bodies like Japan, Brazil, South Africa, and more gave their approval to the merger, and Sony and the FTC's argument began looking a lot weaker. So weak, in fact, that federal judge Corley, that's what I say Cooley, it's Corley, ruled against the FTC, primarily claiming that the record evidence shows that more people than ever were about to get access to your favorite overly aggro Twitch streamer's primary game. Now, the FTC still had time to appeal, and they did, but the well was running dry. FTC Chair Linda Khan was coming under fire from politicians and gamers alike for wasting time on a losing battle. And, excuse me, but as a side note, the FTC putting up a fight was absolutely necessary. It's a scare tactic, making the process slow and trotting so that if a company was going to try for a monopoly, and yes, Microsoft would in fact go for a monopoly if they could, just like any other corporation, they will at least have to think twice about it and the time and the money it will take to pull that off. This process is supposed to be difficult. Nonetheless, all that was left was the CMA's concerns on cloud gaming. Microsoft had to restructure the current deal to help remedy the situation, and were increasingly at a loss to do so. But, much like pro wrestling, you can always shake things up with a good run-in. Enter Ubisoft, whose cloud service Ubisoft Plus already included heavy hitters like Assassin's Creed, Far Cry, and Rainbow Six. On August 22nd, Microsoft announced that it would sell the cloud streaming rights in the UK to the French company. This would apply to all games released in the next 15 years, and that the rights would be in perpetuity. By God, it was a slobber knocker. 1, 2, 3, lol, Cena wins, and the crowd goes home, with the deal set to go through this week. Did everyone get what they want? No, not really. But that's the nature of compromise, right? Microsoft wanted a no-strings-attached sale to go through quickly, netting them as much money off these IPs as possible. Instead, they got a slow, trotting snail's race that ended with some chunks getting cut off so they can fit this through like a Japanese game show version of Saw. Sony wanted to see the deal dead in the water, mainly because they're just mad they didn't think of it first. Instead, they get to keep Call of Duty on their console, knowing full well it's only because the competition lets them. If the roles were reversed, you better believe Sony wouldn't have said a damn thing about unfair competition. The FTC wanted this blocked because they may be the closest to actually wanting to protect the consumer. Instead, they waged losing war after losing war and just fed the right-wing politicians looking to protect CEOs. And I want to kick Bobby Kotick in the dried prunes 390 times, one for each million that he's about to receive in this windfall when this thing goes through. Instead, I have to settle for making him the butt of every joke I can on my tiny little internet talk show while he crawls back into the trillion-dollar hovel like the Rankin Bass hobbit that he is. And that's where we are with that. Guys, stick around, getting more tea. I'm clearing up my throat a little bit, but most importantly, up next, we have an interview with the man behind one of the greatest fan games in the fighting game community, TMNT XJL Turbo. It's a mouthful, but Kamikaze has plenty to talk about. In the meantime, Psycho Blue SFXT, I see you there. Keep him sleeping with the fishes, but don't you start sleeping away on me. We will be right back.